Well, hello everybody, and welcome to week 5 of the drive to Dayton. Here once again with Mike Roth and TJ Petros. I'm Kurt Stubbs, and we are embarking on the biggest week of the tournament to this point. Last week was kind of a light schedule, but tomorrow night, we got games tonight, but tomorrow night really gets things going. And then we are full steam ahead to the finish line here. So, gentlemen, first off, how are we doing? How's everything going?
Doing good. This is kind of like you said, the calm before the storm. The next few weeks is going to be a lot of time on the road, a lot of miles on the car. Looking ahead to Cincinnati, Dayton area, possibly Toledo for a few district doubleheaders, and then we'll see. We'll see where it takes me.
Yeah, I went out to St. Louis to celebrate Mardi Gras this weekend, so excited to be back in the gym starting tomorrow night. I got 10 games Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Gonna be a busy week ahead for me basketball wise.
I thought Roth was going to say St. Clairsville, and he said St. Louis. slightly off there. Now, when you guys are trying to compose your schedule, are you guys looking for more bang for your buck as far as like, are you looking for those double headers? How are you guys going about that?
As far as me, what I do in the beginning of the season, I make a list of high priority teams that I would like to see 2 to 3 times if possible. Medium priority teams, see them once to twice, and then low priority teams. If I get to them, I get to them. If I don't, I don't. So I kind of keep track of all that during the season. And then once postseason rolls around, I look and see, okay, who are the teams that I haven't seen or teams I haven't seen enough of yet? And I try to base a lot of my schedule around them, especially in the beginning of the tournament, because you get a lot of the, kind of lower level teams that are playing teams that aren't going to make it very far. So I try to see them while they're still playing. So that's kind of how I go about it. And then a lot of times in district finals, I'll head to Central Ohio, Southwest Ohio, because they host all their district finals games in one venue. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you definitely want to be smart about where you travel. I keep a document of every team that I've seen so far this season. I've seen 146 different teams from Ohio. So really just using the weeknights in early round games to see teams kind of that don't get all the headlines. I try not to see like your Pick Centrals or your St. Ignatius's or your Centervilles on a Tuesday night. That's when I try to see. Maybe I'll watch like one specific kid on each team. I'll go for that. So again, in the early round of the playoffs, I don't need to see some of the teams I've seen 3 or 4 times this season. I'm trying to see new teams. Because you learn a lot more seeing a new team for the first time than you do seeing a team for a third or fourth or fifth time. You should have a pretty good sense after the first couple times you watch them in the year. So definitely trying to see as many teams per trip that are new is very important.
Yeah, I'm certainly not an expert, but these tournament games really tell you a lot about players, and just kind of how much guys want to win. You can see that aspect of guys' games, how much they love it, how much they really want to win, and that's the beautiful thing about this time of the year. And not just individuals, but like teams in general, collective units of how much they want to win. Guys that are selling out for each other, and I think that's what makes the tournament such a great thing. There's no second chances. It's amazing how when you start this thing, you got roughly 800 teams, and how quickly you can get it down to 64 in each division. Teams get wiped out pretty quick, and this week will be one of those weeks where, especially with that Tuesday, Friday slate this week, is going to take a lot of teams out of the tournament. But before we jump in, we got something planned for these games this week. We kind of broke it up into different sections of areas where TJ is going to look at certain area, Mike and myself. But we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this. But team of the week for you guys this week.
I think we've given this team quite a bit amount of love over the last couple of weeks, but I think you kind of almost have to go Richmond Heights here. Beating St. Ed's, finishing the regular season undefeated. I think it just a phenomenal job considering the fact that they don't have a single senior in their starting lineup. They'll return the exact same 5 next year. And, yeah, it's been – I didn't see it coming at all. Like, I knew that they had the talent, but I honestly thought they'd be about a year away. But I think some of those sophomores definitely surpassed my expectations. And my player of the week kind of goes along with this as well. Is a guy, we give a lot of attention to Dorian Jones and De'Eric Barber, rightfully so. Jose Steele has had a monster year for Richmond Heights as well. But a guy I think kind of slides under the radar a little bit is Damaris Winters. Sophomore, 6'3" wing, shoots the absolute leather off the ball. Has got a good feel, understands how to use shot fakes, drive closeouts, makes pretty good decisions with the basketball. He's a kid who I think has played his way into being one of the better kids in Ohio in his class. So I wanted to show him some love. He made a bunch of shots against St. Ed's. I think he finished with upwards of 20 points. So, yeah, team of the week, Richmond Heights. Player of the week, Damaris Winters.
Yeah, TJ, I actually I watched that game, the live stream game of that, and the funniest thing about that was for the first 3 minutes of the game, I was like, how did they do this? Because you got Mendoza calling the game, and then I could have swore Flan was doing the color in the game, and I was like, what is going on here? And it's Tom Lombardo, their football coach, who sounds just like Flan. It could have been the same guy. But it was incredible. One thing you mentioned, Winters, he was great in the second half. I thought Jones was fantastic in the first half. But the thing that kind of stood out to me is Richmond Heights had a 7-point lead with 1:15 to go. And Ed's basically erased that in less than 30 seconds, took the lead 80-79, and then you kind of figure maybe a young team on the road, hostile environment, they take a punch like that, they're gonna go down. But they come right back. Steele gets an inside bucket, and then they finish the game off with I think they ended up winning 83-80. But they play so loose. They get the ball up and down the court quick, but this team is so much different than last year, where they're way more dangerous on the perimeter. They really don't have a true post presence like they did last year, where the big fellow that came over from Benedictine was kind of clogging the lane up.
London made.
Yeah, he was clogging that lane up a little bit, but they're way more spaced out this year. Winters, that release is unbelievable. He shot one from the E and made it in this game. But 42 wins in a row, that's 2 straight years they beat Eds, which is, not many teams can do that. Now, with all that being said, one thing that I think has helped them to be able to do this year is they've played some really good teams, but they've been spaced out, with the teams that they have to play in their conference, which they're not going to be in anymore. But and Ed's, to me, is a good team. I don't think they have a true guard that handles it well. Richmond Heights pressure really got to them. That 3/4 court trap that they were running, I thought that really got to Ed's. But it'll be interesting to see. I feel like Ed's can cruise out of that district. But it'll be interesting to see how far Eds makes it in the D1 tournament. So just wanted to add that. Mike, where were you going to go with your team of the week?
So I got 2 teams of the week, no players of the week. You made me think of this on the fly as TJ was talking. My first team of the week, I'm going to go 1 regular season team, and that's going to be Garfield Heights. They snapped Maple Heights' 15-game winning streak, I believe it was. In a what?
It was either 15 or 16, I believe.
Yeah. They beat them 56-23, so big time defense by Sonny Johnson and company. And my other team of the week, I was going to talk about them a little later, but Finneytown pulled one of the biggest upsets in Division 3, Southwest 3. They were the 12th seed, and they beat 4th seeded Williamsburg 72-58. So now they go up against 5th seeded Marymount in the second round. That game's going to be played on Wednesday night, 5:30 tip-off at Western Brown High School. So just wanted to give a shout out to Finneytown, one of the bigger upsets, 12 seed over a 4 seed that I saw while looking through some of the first round action that happened this week.
There is no other podcast in the state that is going to give love to Finneytown. All right, this is the podcast that's going to give love to Finneytown. And all jokes aside, yes, that was a nice win for them. I believe they're in the Cincinnati Hills League as well, correct? With like Wyoming and
I believe
Madeira.
so, yes.
Yeah, they are.
I was trying to think, since you mentioned, we'll kind of combo this. You mentioned a team of the week. My player of the week is a guy that, in an era where guys jump around schools and don't like to wait their turn, this guy has certainly done that. He's waited his turn. He was a essential part to last year's team. It was more of a niche that he had on last year's team. But my player of the week is Andrew Hedgepeth of Pick Central. My man was fantastic on Tuesday in a rivalry win over Pick North, and then another rivalry win on Friday where they just blew the doors off Reynoldsburg. Hedgepeth goes for, I believe, 24 points. I think he had 6 threes. He did something I didn't know he even had in him, the two-handed dunk at the end of the game. I didn't know that was even in his repertoire. He just kind of looks like he's a little bit lackadaisical at times, but it's just his demeanor. But he's playing really good basketball right now, and I think he's a kid that, and this is often overused, but I think he's a kid that's going to play some really good basketball in the college level. I don't know if he's done growing, and he certainly hasn't. His body has not completely matured yet. He's still young looking, and I think he's going to provide a really nice piece to a college program.
Yeah, and one thing I can add to that, I've watched Andrew, over the last few years, especially in the summer periods. He's a kid who, I'm not sure he gets enough credit for this, but he is a phenomenal passer. He makes the simple pass. He does a great job of advancing the ball up the floor without the dribble. I think defensively, he showed some upside too. So, if he's making shots, then, he's a kid who, sky's the limit, as far as small college prospects. And I think the role of him and Markel Johnson and Jawan Turner ultimately is going to dictate how far Pick Central goes.
Yeah, Keechler was just a monster inside. Again, he is a kid that is, last year, he was a kid that came in, but he kind of knew, I'm only in here for a short amount of time. I hope I don't do anything to mess it up to get me out of the game quicker than I already, am going to be on this floor. But you can see his confidence growing and growing and growing, and his basketball legs are definitely under him now. At the beginning of the season, he wasn't getting off the floor like he is now. He's dunking almost everything around the rim. He's a shot block. He's a force shot blocking on the defensive end. They're just, it's amazing how much they've went through this year, and guys kind of missing some games for this, that, or the other, and they just keep on winning. And 10-0 in the conference. I know their conference isn't great, but still 10-0 in the conference, and I look for them. They're going to make another deep run here. I think they're primed and ready to go.
How many losses does Pick Central have to Ohio teams?
One. Well, I mean, if you count Spire, two.
No, I don't count
To
Spire.
OHSA's, the double overtime game to Centerville was it, and I know they would love to have that one back, and the Cathedral game for sure. Other than that, I mean, they took a couple of clean losses down in Florida, but I know they would like to have those two back, and they might get a chance with Centerville in the semifinals if, a lot of work left to go for everybody involved. But
Yep.
all right, so let's jump into this week because a lot of good stuff on the agenda this week. TJ, I'm going to let you tackle Northeast Ohio. What are you looking forward to this week? What's standing out to you?
So I was looking at some opening round games, and while I don't think there are a ton of intriguing matchups or games that caught my eye, there were 5 that I wrote down for various reasons. I think Firestone and Green on paper, it doesn't look like it could be very good. Firestone and Maple Heights. Firestone actually played Uniontown Green a few weeks ago, and they only lost by 3 points to a Green team that just won a share of the Federal League. Firestone got a mid-season transfer, a kid named Zevin Gadsden, who played last year at Akron Buchtel, one of the more talented juniors in Ohio when he's playing well. So I think Firestone adding him to the mix kind of makes them a dangerous first-round matchup if you're Maple Heights. I think the McKinley-Euclid game has a chance to be pretty good. Euclid has played a tough schedule, has played a lot of teams close, including Lutheran East at the beginning of the year. McKinley has had a very much up and down season. They were picked preseason to win the Federal League. They've had highs, they've had lows. But at the end of the day, a team that's still very well coached, and when they're playing hard and getting after it defensively, they're a really tough out. So I think McKinley-Euclid at the Fieldhouse is a game to keep an eye on. But to me, probably the most compelling game in the first round of the tournament is Glen Oak and Uniontown Lake. So these are 2 teams that are in the same league, have split the regular season, both won on each other's floor. Lake beat Glen Oak at Glen Oak, and then Glen Oak turned around and beat Lake at Lake later in the year. So that's a game kind of tied 1-1. It'll be very interesting to see how that game goes. And then lastly, I would say Wadsworth and Lorraine is a game kind of worth keeping tabs on as well.
So, TJ, it looks like if you were going to put anybody on upset alert this week, it would be maybe Maple Heights.
Oh, man, I don't want to go that far. Just off the strength that I haven't seen Akron Firestone.
Yeah.
But the fact that they did play Uniontown Green as close as they did, and they have, arguably he's probably going to be the most talented kid on the floor in that game. It's definitely one to keep an eye on, but I wouldn't be surprised either way, whether it was close or, Maple Heights runs them out of the gym. So
now remember, upset alert just means you're on alert. It's like, like you could possibly have a winter snowstorm, but, not 100%.
Nobody believed in the Chiefs. Everybody picked against them.
That's what Travis Kelce told me anyway.
Yep.
All right, Mike. So I think you're going to be spending a lot of your week in Southwest Ohio.
Yep. So on Tuesday, I am going to be going to Fairfield High School. Biggest game there. Kings, who are co-champs of the ECC, they are going to be taking on Western Hills out of the Cincinnati Metro Athletic Conference, but that actually wasn't any of the games I picked in Central or Southwest. So I'll start in Central. This is a second round game. It's Grove City versus DeSales. Grove City is going to have to beat Mifflin to get to this game. But I think this is a pretty unique matchup. DeSales had a really good non-conference season. Struggled a little bit in conference play, but PJ Knowles is a pretty talented 2025 kid. They just play tough basketball, have a history of making deep playoff runs. But they are now up to D1. Grove City, they got a good balance of guard play and a big in Craig Gilbert, a junior, whose best basketball is in front of him. If you're putting any team in Central Ohio on upset alert, I think I'm going to put Newark on upset alert. They're going up against Olentangy.
Stubbs doesn't like that one.
No, not at all. I know Stubbs doesn't like it. But I liked what I saw out of Olentangy this season when I went and watched him play. They got senior guard Harrison Ronenbaum, who's pretty talented, and they also got a junior post player. He's a Division I recruit at like tight end or defensive end. He's really physical, so I think he's going to be a good matchup against Steel Meister. Another game in Central Ohio. This is another second round game. Hilliard Bradley versus Marysville. Bradley's going to need to beat Whetstone. I think this game's on like Friday night. You're seeing two 2024 kids who have played together forever in Cade Norris and Jason Moore. So that's kind of interesting, seeing like AAU teammates going up against each other at the high school level. So I think that's a pretty intriguing game. And then in D2, I went with Bloom Carroll versus Granville. Granville does have to beat Whitehall, but that game I believe also would be on Friday night. Two teams that have been very successful in their conferences. They got a bunch of multi-sport athletes who were impressive on the football field as well. Both teams have made the state Final Four in football, so they're used to winning. I think that's a pretty intriguing game. In a central D2 district, the one without Bishop Reedy, I think that's as wide open of a district as you'll see across the entire state. So those are my games in Central Ohio. Stubbs, if you want to go to Northwest before I tackle Southwest.
Yeah.
There's one game, Rob, that I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not, but to me, if I was in Central Ohio, I'm still kind of even debating on making the trip. I think the Reynoldsburg-Northland game tomorrow is probably the game with the most talent on the floor. So that one could be a lot of fun. Northland coming off of that big win over Afrocentric in the city championship game. So I think they're playing well. Reynoldsburg has been very up and down, but has, as many pieces as anybody. I think that's a game to watch too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so here's what I'll do, Roth. I'll tackle, because I just got a short snippet of East District, Southeast District, not a whole lot there. So then you can go Southwest after that, and then I'll finish there with the Northwest. Yeah, TJ, I'm interested because I don't think Reynoldsburg has like a natural ball handler. Like they're all like kind of a bunch of wings. I love the Noah Smith kid, but he's not a point guard. It'll be interesting to see what King Kendrick can do against those guys because Berg did not handle the ball very well against Pick Central. And I just think that's a very intriguing matchup. You hit the nail on the head there. All right, so real quick, East District. East District Tuesday night games, a lot of it is going to predicate on what happens on Tuesday to set up some of these potential later in the week matchups. But I think a good opening East District game is Union Local, Harrison Central. These two teams played on February 14th. UL won that game 64-52. Harrison's coming into this losing 3 of 4 after having a real hot streak there. So this is an interesting game to me. Strasburg against Tuskegee Central Catholic. This is interesting. Strasburg 16-6, Tuskegee Central Catholic 7-13. but their 2 games in the regular season were 52-51 and 38-35. Both Strasburg wins, so that could be interesting. Strasburg obviously is probably very aware of that. But the games later in the week that could happen: Monroe Central at Highland. This would be a rematch of last year's overtime thriller, which I think it was a district semi game. Union Local at Ferry. Ferry has beat Union Local twice this year, but I think Union Local could get them if they can get past Harrison. And then a team, I believe it was me and Roth that picked Garaway. Interesting matchup on later on in the week. If Belair can get past Coshocton, Belair is going to pose some serious problems with Garaway for the way Belair's athleticism and the way that they play. They want to play 100 miles an hour. So I'm interested in that game, but that's some East District stuff. Southeast, I mean, Roth, you could probably tell us more, but the Southeast, to me, used to be like a heavy D3. Like, I used to think D3 was by far the best in Southeast Ohio for a long, long time. This year, it seems like it may have shifted a little bit to D2 on some of the better matchups.
I think what you're looking at that is because D3 is 2 districts and
right.
D2 is only 1. So you're getting like all the good games earlier in D2 than D3. But I do think the best teams in Southeast, like your Minfords, your Zane Traces, Lucasville Valley, I'm forgetting South Point as well, Fairland, they're all in D3. So while there are good teams in D2, like you're going to mention, I'm sure Washington Courthouse, Miami Trace, Fairfield Union, New Lexington. I still think that D3 is Southeast Ohio's best bet to make it to Dayton outside of Leesburg, Fairfield.
Yeah, maybe I rephrase that. I feel like D2's depth is a little bit, when you start to get down further, in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range, I feel like D2's depth is pretty solid. 3 games I'm looking at: New Lex and Jackson. I think that could be interesting. Ironton and Sheridan. I don't know what that game just like. It just doesn't like. I don't think those teams have ever played anything. Well,
they're so far from each other.
Yeah, and Ironton has historically been in D3, and now they're up in D2. And then Gallia and Alexander could be interesting as well. But I think there's a lot of potential here for the Saturday games in this monster district. 20. I think there's 20 teams in the district.
Yep, 20.
All right, Mike, I'll let you hit the pedal on Southwest here.
All right, so I already talked about one of the games that I'm watching on Tuesday. I'm going to go to the game that I'm going to watch on Wednesday, which is LaSalle versus Anderson. I'm not sure many people know this. LaSalle split for the GCL South Championship, and they swept Moeller. Just seems like that kind of flew under the radar. So I'm excited to see LaSalle one more time. They're going up against an Anderson squad that had a good record this season in the ECC. Chandler Starks for Anderson, future Mountaineer on the gridiron, going committed to West Virginia. But I think that's a pretty interesting battle. Staying in the GCL South, ring the upset alert buzzer, because I think Middletown has a decent shot of upsetting Elder. If Middletown can push the tempo, I like their guards. I like the pace that they play at. I think it's a unique clash of styles. I wouldn't be surprised if Elder also just frustrated Middletown with their passing, holding the basketball and getting efficient shots. But if this game goes the other way and it becomes a track meet, I like Middletown's athletes. So I think that's a very intriguing game. Another one, Sycamore versus Lakota West. Sycamore without Riley Burgess, but they are still one of the more talented teams, have a lot of seniors capable of scoring from the outside. And then Lakota West, they've had an up and down season. Star Nate Dukovic dealt with an injury mid-season that kind of stunted where they were as a team. But they just beat Western Hills by like 30, or not Western Hills. It was Walnut Hills. There we go. By about 30 points. So it seems like Lakota West is playing their best basketball at the right time. They got a decent amount of athletes to match up with Sycamore, their conference rivals as well. Then I went with Moeller versus Hamilton, another example of a GMC versus GCL South battle. Last season, there were no GCL South teams that even made it to a district championship game. I assume at least one of them makes it this year. But Moeller, they've had a couple weird losses this year. They got really hot mid-season, but have struggled to close the season. Hamilton got a nice guard-forward combo in Cooper Matthews and Andrea Holden. So we'll see if they're able to pull off the upset as well. And then looking at D2 Dayton area, you got Dayton Oakwood versus Dayton Dunbar. That's going to feature two of the better unsigned seniors in Southwest Ohio. In Will Maxwell going up against the Allen brothers at Dunbar, and also BJ Hatcher recently had a big first-round playoff game, scoring over 30 points. So that's another game that I would keep my eyes on this week in Southwest Ohio.
That's a good rundown there. I had zero clue, and I'm a football guy, that Chandler Starks was at Anderson. Had no idea that he was there. And then I kept looking, I was like, man, Anderson's won a lot of games this year. And then, I was looking at their stats and I saw Chandler Starks was there. I was like, I had no clue. No clue. That's a really good get for West Virginia, by the way. All right, so let's go to the Northwest. The Northwest is stacked this week, really. Tuesday, not so much. I listed one game for Tuesday. I listed Wapak-Canetta against Lima Shawnee. Those are two WBL rivals. One's 12-10, the other's 10-12. Wapak comes into this game winning 7 of 9. And they beat Shawnee 56-54 in overtime at Shawnee earlier in the season. So I feel like this should be a really good game for Tuesday night. But the potential Friday games, the 24th, could be really, really good. You have Antwerp possibly against Pettisville. Antwerp had won 9 straight before losing to Black Hawk Christian in the finale. Anybody know who is a graduate of Black Hawk Christian? Caleb First. He was not playing in this game, but they did beat Antwerp, knocked their 9-game winning streak, or ended their 9-game winning streak. But Pettisville, I'm blanking on the kid's name. I think his last name is Jacoby.
Jacoby.
Yeah, Caden Jacoby.
Yeah, real nice player. They're 14-8. Could be an interesting game on Friday. Also,
Is that a part of a doubleheader, Stubbs?
I believe so. Another quality game could be Pandora Gilboa against Delphi St. John's. PG is 18-4. Delphi St. John's 15-7. PG won at Delphus back on January 14th, 51-49. That was an afternoon tilt, which could be a really good rematch. A team that the Rothstein went with, Old Fort, 19-3 against Arlington, 16-6. Old Fort comes into this game winners of 10 straight. Arlington 6-7. This is going to be a really good game. I think Arlington's going to get them. But Roth says nope. Nope, Old Fort's moving on. I think this was the district that one of the districts we all picked.
One of the two.
Yep. D3, Delta, 17-5 against Wayne Trace, 16-6. Delta's interesting. They're only 3-4 in their league, but they're 17-5 overall. Wayne Trace, 5 of their 6 losses by a combined 9 points. That's just an incredible stat to me. Less than 2 points a game.
When I watched Wayne Trace against Tiffin Columbian, it was kind of strange. It was one of those games where if you turned the scoreboard off, you would have thought Wayne Trace was, up, near double digits. It's like they did everything to win that game. They held Logan Beeston, I think, to like maybe 13 or 14 points.
Mm-hmm.
Their star player played one of his better games of the year. And then you look up and, somehow they lost. So I'm sure a lot of their season has kind of been like that, trying to figure out how to win. But, yeah, that's a weird stat, unfortunate stat.
Yeah, that stat indicates to me that team is going to be extremely good next year. Their big 3 all coming back for next year. Another game I'm looking at in D3 is Cary, 19-3 against Liberty Benton, 19-3. Cary's won 8 straight games. LB won this game on the 16th, 54-32. I think this one could be a lot closer. D2, the team I have on upset alert for Friday, if this game happens. Sandusky against Sandusky Perkins. Sandusky won both of their games in the regular season. Crazy games. 91-82, 85-83.
Jeez.
Yeah, so this third
Sandusky
meeting
gets up and down. I've seen both Sandusky and Perkins play this year. No shot clock necessary when those two teams play against each other.
Yeah, this should be an exciting third game if it occurs between these two teams. The other game in D2, two teams kind of going in the opposite direction. 18-4 Lexington against 14-8 Willard. Lexington, we know, started 12-0, but they're 6-4 in their last 10. Willard, on the other hand, has won 6 straight and 9 out of their last 11. I do think Lexington is going to win this game, but I'm going to put them on the alert. They're not on the alert like Sandusky, but they're on the alert.
I think the size in that game will be the difference. Having seen both Lexington and Willard this year, Lexington has as big of a front court as I think anybody does in Ohio. They go 6'5" with freshman Braden Fogel, 6'6", 6'7", Baden Forup, and then they have a 6'7", 6'8" junior. I believe his name is Elijah Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a lot of length and size and athleticism that Willard is going to struggle with. But Max Dawson is a junior for them. He scores it about as well as anybody in Ohio.
Yeah, Joe Bedingfield, a really good coach at Willard. I think this one could be interesting, but I do agree with you, TJ, on that front line. But those Lexington guards are going to have to handle it. D1, the only game, I got another upset alert team. Tiffin Columbia 18-4 with the potential matchup with 13-9 Toledo St. John's. Columbia has won 8 straight. Toledo St. John's they're a roller coaster, man. 13-9. They lose a lot of close games, but if you told me St. John's won this game, I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't either.
But so that is what I have for Northwest Ohio. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we will end this show with buy or sell. All right, we're back. We're going to finish this episode off with a little buy or sell, possibly an on the spot, and then we're going to get out of here for this Monday night.
There's two second round games that I forgot to mention that I think could be pretty interesting. So North Canton Hoover and Walsh Jesuit, considering Walsh Jesuit wins. The two played earlier this month on the 8th, and Hoover won 49-47. Walsh Jesuit has been a team who's been all over the place. I think they're probably the only team in Ohio that can say they beat both St. V and St. Ignatius this year. But yeah, Hoover is always a tough out with Coach Bluey. Makes you guard him for about 30 to 40 seconds,
Oof.
a lot of chin offense. And then a game that wouldn't be an upset according to the seeding, but I think Avon Lake and Cleveland Heights is a game to watch. I think a lot of people are kind of penciling in Cleveland Heights and Garfield Heights for that district final, but something me and Roth talked about a couple of weeks ago, Avon Lake has been playing really well, and it's a team that could very easily win that game and also compete for the district.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. Like, just kind of penciling Cleveland Heights into that game with Garfield Heights, and you guys are exactly right. You know, Avon Lake might not be very welcoming in that game to Cleveland Heights.
And it'll be at Avon Lake.
Yeah, because it's so early in the playoffs, you
Yeah.
still have the home court.
Yep. Sectional final, so.
Yeah, it's so confusing to me. Like East District, they host, Central a host to a certain point. Northwest Ohio does not.
Southwest Ohio doesn't host either.
It's just that goes back to that. Can we get something blanket across the state? But all right, buy or sell. This was a tweet that our guy Martin RPI sent out yesterday, and I know he's a younger guy. I guess most everybody at this point is younger compared to me in this game, but he didn't pose this as a statement. He was just posing them as a question. And he said that Richmond High, he said, is Richmond High the best team in Ohio regardless of class? I kind of added, do we really think that they could go through the D1 tournament and win it all? That's a big difference of just beating a team on a single night as opposed to winning six games in the tournament at the D1 level, where you're having to face those type of teams back to back. And then he also posed, is this the best, or something about maybe the best D4 team of all time. And I'm as a guy, a history guy, as you guys both well know, I'm not ready to go there. But what do you guys think?
I said a couple of weeks ago that, Richmond Heights was arguably the top team in Ohio, and I'm standing by that. I think if they've had the luxury during the season, I think you mentioned this earlier, of playing like their top game. They have a tough game.
Yeah.
Then they'll go about a week or so of playing in conference where, they just, they dominate. Then they get another tough game or two, and then they get another, week or so of conference games. So their big wins have all been pretty spread out. But I think they could very well go to Dayton if they were in Division I. I think they are, without a shadow of a doubt, a top 5 team in the state, regardless of division. And I think that they would compete in Division I.
Roth?
Yeah, I agree. They definitely are one of the most talented teams in Ohio. They got the wins to back it up. I obviously, if you would give me the field versus Richmond Heights in D1, I'm going to take the field. But they are a team that, we saw what they did against Eds. If they were in the Northeast region, you're likely going up against like Eds, St. Vincent, St. Mary, Stowe, teams like that. I think they could match up with pretty much anybody. But I do think you guys raise a good point. With how many games they don't really have to get up for, where you compare that to some teams, they only have like maybe 4 to 6 cupcakes a year. They're getting pretty much every game in conference as a cupcake. So I do think it's a smart move by the CVC to allow Richmond Heights and Lutheran West to become independents just for basketball. You're also seeing that in football. Ironton has recently become independent from the OVC, but Ironton is going to continue to play at least two of their conference opponents in football over the near future. So just kind of interesting. I think it helps competitiveness for those teams, and it'll be interesting next year. Richmond Heights returns their whole starting five. They're probably going to be playing 15, 18 tough competitive games instead of like 6 or 7 this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see next year how they handle a tough game on a Tuesday, then a tough game on a Friday and a Saturday. But I mean, they've had tough challenges. They've won in tough places. They won at Eds. They won at a neutral site over Lutheran East. This team is young, but they are not inexperienced. So just really impressed with what they did. They were actually my answer in TJ's mailbag. What was your biggest surprise this year? I said Richmond Heights going undefeated. If you had told me preseason, a team with no seniors and that schedule went undefeated, there's no way I would have believed you. So props to them. And I think if they do end up going unbeaten and winning the state title, I think it should be celebrated for a remarkable accomplishment. But I don't feel like that will be much of a discussion there. Because there's been a lot of talk about moving them out of D4, which they were like 2 kids away in general. And I think D3 would be a much better spot for them to be in, like we saw them against Lutheran East.
I would have to take a look at a lot of the top teams in Ohio, but I'm pretty sure that Richmond Heights might be the only team in the state that starts 5 clear-cut scholarship-level prospects. I would have to look, but they might be the only Ohio team that can say that.
Yeah, so just to add to you guys definitely raised great points, great analysis, gentlemen. One thing that I would add is last year, I don't think either of you would disagree with this. There was a significant gap between Pick Central, Centerville, and the rest of the state. And that was clear in the Final Four because those 2 semifinal games were absolute just burials.
Third best, the next best team in the state besides those 2 was St. V pretty comfortably, in my opinion.
Yep.
And they were in D2.
So the way I was looking at this, and I was watching Richmond Heights pretty closely against Eds, and I still, and I'm not saying these teams are going to be at the state because anything can happen with high school kids. I do believe that when teams play their best game, I'm not talking about you have a terrible night. When the teams play their best game, I still believe that Pick Central and Centerville are the 2 best teams that Ohio has to offer. And when I watched Richmond Heights play, the way they play, I was trying to picture them playing Pick Central that way, and I don't think that would end well for Richmond Heights trying to play that style against Pick Central because they would have absolutely no answer for Devin Royal. And there is not any team in Ohio that has an answer for Devin Royal. When he is bringing it, which he does most nights, he is the ultimate X factor. Last year, in that game, when things were shaky, he went and got his rear end down on the block and just absolutely big boyed Centerville. And he's still there, and those guards are getting better. Markel Johnson has been great all year. Hedgepeth is gaining more confidence. I don't know. Headings likely will be back by the district final. From what I understand, Biles was in uniform. I don't see it. He did look great in warm-ups. That leg looked great. He was putting the ball over the rim very easily, and Biles is a different animal. So nothing would surprise me with him. I don't know if you throw him in at this point in the time, though. That's a lot of lost time. But I just think that Centerville and Pick Central are still, on their best day, the 2 best teams that this state has to offer. Richmond Heights next year, when those are 3 juniors and 2 seniors, I think that you have a definite argument at that point.
No bias at all from you, right?
Hey, you guys told me I was biased last year, and we all know how it ended.
Yeah.
Listen, I've said this to Shoulders, and you both know Shoulders. Shoulders and I had this conversation last week. I said, being a scout is really difficult because I see Pick Central like I know those guys in that program inside and out. And that is the only team in the state that I feel confident that I would have a really good, like ironclad evaluation on those kids because I see them that much. Anybody else, I could see them 7, 8 times. I still wouldn't feel completely confident that like I'm missing something or I didn't see them in the right spots. But with those guys, I feel like I have a pretty good grip on what they can do, and they tend to turn it up when they have to. When they know the money's on the line, and Centerville's the same way. Centerville is the same way. Cups will, those dudes will be ready, and that's not to say, like I said, those teams might not even be at the state. Central Ohio's got a lot of teams that, on any given night, could certainly take them out. But that's where I'm at this point. Definitely no bias. All right, I'm going to hit you guys with this one, and we'll roll out. On the spot, I want your 4 state champions. And if you guys want a second to think about it, I'll just toss mine out there, and then you guys can think about it.
All right, you go first.
All right, I can just see smoke coming out of Ross' ears.
I wonder who Stubbs is going to take in D1. It's a mystery.
I got Delaware Hayes, man. I could see the smoke coming out of Ross' ears thinking about that D2 pick. All right, so let's.
We all know D3.
Let's make this anticlimactic. D4 will be Richmond Heights. D3, I'm not completely sold. I am going to take Lutheran East. I'm not completely sold that they're going to win it. D2, I am going to go. I think this team is just destined to win it. I'm going to take Bishop Reedy. And then D1, you already know the flags back there. Let's go. Pick Central. I love you guys, man.
I would say Division 4 would be the same for me, Richmond Heights. Division 3, my gut says Lutheran East. I've seen a lot of the other teams that I believe are probably their top, competition, and they beat 2 of the 3 or 2 of the 4 of them. They beat Afrocentric on a neutral floor at the beginning of the season. They beat Toledo Emmanuel Christian on the neutral floor December 10th. Ottawa Glandorf, I think, would be a very interesting matchup. I'm not sure how well Ottawa Glandorf handles it. That would be kind of my only area of concern in that game, but I think that would be really, really fun. So my gut still says Lutheran East and D3. Division 2, man, I am torn. I want to go Bishop Reedy so bad, but the fact that they haven't lost the game actually kind of worries me.
Yeah, me too.
So I will go with Chaminade Julian in Division 2, with an honorable mention to Bishop Reedy. And then my Division 1 pick, I will actually take Centerville.
TJ just gave out an honorable mention state champion.
It was close. It was like splitting hairs, man. Like, I wanted to say Bishop Reedy so bad, and then you said him, so then I was like, I can't.
I'm sorry. So did you take Centerville in D1?
Centerville in Division 1.
Okay. Roth?
All right, I am going to go with Richmond Heights in D4. Shocker. For the sake of being different,
Oh, Roth, you're very different.
For the sake of being different, I'm gonna take Emmanuel Christian to win D3. I'd feel better if I got like the Emmanuel Christian OG winner. But to make it different, to not have a clean Lutheran East sweep, we'll go with that. I'm gonna do what TJ did in D2 and go with CJ. But I would be curious to see if Boubacar Dejigo comes back for Lutheran West. They're a team that could do it. So that is going to be a storyline I would monitor. I don't know if he is planning on coming back. It seemed like that was the goal. If he's coming back playing at a high level, I think Lutheran West very capable of winning a state title. And D1, I'm going to go with Centerville. But Stubbs, you mentioned it. A team people aren't really thinking about, St. Ignatius. I think they're a sleeper team to watch. I'm going to go with Centerville, though. But it would not surprise me to see Cam Joyce in the Final Four for what I believe would be a third straight season.
Yep, that would be very impressive.
I think you made a really good point, Roth, with Boubacar Dejigo coming back for Lutheran West. I think that completely changes the dynamic of Division II, and they might be the front runner if he's back and that kid is playing 80-90%. I mean, he's was arguably their best player a year ago. 6'7" senior who tore his ACL back in June, but really, really good run and jump athlete, plays with a super high motor, rebounds the ball on both ends, block shots. He is a game changer if he is back and is remotely healthy for Lutheran West.
Great stuff, gentlemen. Can't wait to see what happens this week, to see how many times I was wrong. Hopefully we keep it above proficient here at the 70% mark. And I'm looking forward to the week, following the scores, see what's going on, filling in my bracket. And so you guys have a safe travels this week, wherever you guys are going. For Mike Roth, TJ Petros, I'm Kurt Stubbs. We're out.